Hi everyone, welcome to Outgrow's Market of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Saksham Sharda. I'm the creative director at outgrow.co. And for this month, we're going to interview Jeff Bullas, who is the CEO at jeffbullas.com. Thank you for joining us, Jeff.
It's an absolute pleasure.
So, Jeff, we're going to start with a rapid fire round just to break the ice. You get 3 passes. In case you don't want to answer the question, you can just say pass. But try to keep your answers to one word or one sentence only, okay?
Okay,
All right, the first one. How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
As long as it takes.
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
Getting married twice.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
4 to 6.
Fill in the blank. An upcoming marketing trend is blank.
Content created by artificial intelligence.
The city in which the best kiss of your life happened.
Birnbong.
Pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey.
Jack Dorsey.
The first movie that comes to your mind when I say the word ambition.
Steve Jobs movie.
Yeah. When did you last cry and why?
More moist than crying. My children.
Okay. The biggest mistake of your career?
Not starting soon enough.
Okay. I was just like, for that pause, I thought you were going to say my children once again, but no. How do you relax?
Meditate, cycle, and read.
Okay. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
5.
A habit of yours that you hate?
Picking my nose.
Sucks it's a video interview, but okay. The most valuable skill you've learned in life?
Writing.
And the last question is your favorite Netflix show?
I'm trying to divide between Netflix and whatever. Netflix show. Right. This is going to require a bit of editing.
Yeah. Oh, no, we're just going to let this play because this is a rapid fire round and you made a mistake.
I know. Netflix show.
Or you can just name any show. It's okay.
Netflix show. White Collar.
Okay. I'm not even sure if it's a Netflix show or not, but I'll accept that answer.
It's not actually. It's Amazon Prime, actually.
Well, that was the end of the rapid fire round. You scored 9 on 10 because you really did bust up the whole Netflix show thing, but that's okay. You win a car. Just kidding, you don't. But
yes, yeah. Can't
all
go
right,
anywhere at the moment. Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to the bigger questions. The first one is, so tell us one unique thing about social media in 2009 when you just started building jeffbullas.com, and how has that changed now over the years?
Social media in 2009 was without filters. It was just raw, and it was like the Wild West. It was beautiful because you could connect with your tribe and build them organically. Today, the new media moguls, and that includes Mark Zuckerberg, and also includes Twitter and others, have decided they want to filter you and put algorithms around what they deem to be important for you. So we have now gone from raw, unfiltered social media to filtered algorithmic social media that is filtered by the platforms. And And the algorithms extend way beyond social media. They extend to emails, what appears in your inbox, what goes to spam. It extends to what is seen in your Amazon filters. It's what's seen in your Spotify. It's what's seen in your on Netflix. So you are being filtered by the robots, and it even stops you placing advertising on Google or Facebook because the algorithms and the robots are determining what is approved and what isn't, with hardly human insight. And we all know the challenge with that is that because everything is done at enormous global scale, so humans intervening in filtering is essentially impossible. But I think we're at the start of a real challenge where AI is also at its raw stage, where it's a blunt force instrument that is determining what you see and what you don't see, what you read and what you don't read, also what you can and can't do. And that is a real challenge. So the difference in one sentence is we started with raw, unfiltered social media where you can connect with your tribe organically. We've moved to pay to play, algorithms determining who sees you and who doesn't see you.
And this is something that the American government has been taking on, because having two political parties means that whatever side social media is on is immediately a problem for the other political party. And I think one of the chair of the committee made the point that social media had two options: either to go and try to be a phone like when you're calling someone, right? It's not getting filtered, right? So you either just become a communications platform that is completely unmonitored, or you take the other thing where you're filtering stuff, but who decides what is to be filtered and what's not? And as you're saying, when robots take over, then at some point we kind of lose track of the system.
Yep. And the other challenge, I think, is that the algorithms are also giving attention to what provides more traffic and attention. Essentially, that challenge is that drama and negativity rises to the top. In other words, the garbage rises to the top, not the good stuff. And that, I think, is another problem that we have with the algorithms. And we also, the challenge is that the filters are also keeping us within bubbles rather than allowing us to actually discover things that will challenge our perception of the world and our templates and our way of thinking. So what happens is we're just being more filtered into more and more intense small bubbles, and that's the challenge globally.
And how do you think it's affecting companies in particular? Because I know a couple of years ago, Facebook already said they're going to restrict company feeds from showing in people's normal feeds. Because I think I've seen much less company normal posts, but sponsored posts I've seen, but not like normal posts that they post.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is that they're filtering out anything organic. They're actually promoting anything that makes money. So the platforms have become more about making money for the media moguls than about providing. And that's what they've got to do once. And, so the big change with Facebook happened after they went public, because then they were beholden to the shareholders. And it's like, how are you making money? And guess what? So what was fabulous from 2009 to 2013, that 14, was we had 5 years of pure, really global social media tribes collecting and sharing with no filters, with no censorship, effectively. And as we had the corporatization of social media, as they become public companies, the issue became that it's all about making money. So social media started with, I wouldn't say the right intentions, because essentially it was like Facebook was about voting on who was the best looking girl, okay, on campus, right?
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a dating site in one sense, very non-PC, but that's, any technology is used for good or for evil, and that's the challenge we're facing today, is that the power of the platforms is revealing itself. And it's I think that these platforms, by their actions, are almost begging to be begging to be rules made for them. And we've seen the abuse of privacy. We've seen the EU bring in rules for that. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So 2009 versus 2021, it's huge difference.
And so I guess, in a sense, if we had to go back to a 2009 level of social media, then we would see new social networks crop up that don't follow these rules. And because there's a market, suddenly there's a market for new social networks that don't follow these rules of censorship or filtering or all of this. So for instance, Clubhouse, you can't actually censor anything on Clubhouse because it's a live meeting. And that's the unique thing about it. Like, anything that's said on it remains there. There is no filter that can remove it from there.
Yeah, well, Clubhouse, I believe, has suffered some serious traffic declines recently.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, and the reality is that us as human beings have got limited attention. We've got limited time, and the reality is that we can only. So the big platforms get most of our attention. Snapchat suffered, Facebook copied, Instagram copied. Clubhouse has risen. Twitter's stayed at much the same level of number of daily users. Twitter's moved more into providing a platform for political leaders and celebrities.
Mm.
We're in the middle. This is the organic development evolution of platforms. For anyone to break through that noise is going to be a challenge for anyone. So network effects essentially have given the bigger players more attention and the small players much harder to break through. And I think more government regulation is certainly going to creep in over the next decade to make sure that the bad actors don't take over the platforms because they get more attention, because that's what sells, more traffic and clicks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge for the big platforms. They're about making money. I remember 10 years ago and saying I was so excited by social media because it democratized, publishing globally. We're able to get our voice out to the world, share our creations with the world. Guess what? It's almost impossible now to grow organically unless you're a celebrity and appear on Main Street TV as well as social media. And so the reality is that we have new gatekeepers. We used to have media moguls where you had to pay for attention, such as mass media. Today we have more other gatekeepers, and they're called the social media barons.
Yeah. But hasn't historically this always been the case with any communication medium, like with the print, with the magazines? Like, there's always been a dominance, and then it gets broken by new democratizing mediums of communication coming along. So who do you think that is going to be? Because it's going to get broken at some point.
Oh, well, there's little players that put their toe in the ring. We've got we had Clubhouse from an audio viewpoint because we've seen the rise of podcasting. Apple's announced some new things around podcasting to make money out of podcasting. I think at the end of the day, as a marketer, that you need to make sure that you are not mono-channel, you're a multi-channel. And be aware that you're playing within the rules of the game, and you're just going to work at how the rules are best played and then work at how to play within those rules. And be sometimes aware how you can growth hack within those rules and experiment. So it's still fascinating times. We live in the most exciting time in the world's history, and we all now still have a platform to reach the world, which is what excited me about social media. It's just that you've got to learn how those rules work, how the processes work, and we're in the middle of working out how to play in a war where there's individual battles of the algorithm, and we're also, because a lot of the algorithms aren't published, such as Google's search engine optimization. They keep changing the rules. Traffic rises and falls organically. What I do love about Google, despite having a love-hate relationship with search engine optimization, sometimes called SEO, is that at least you can earn attention on Google by providing great quality content. I think the challenge on the Facebooks and Twitters of this world is it's not the quality of the content that sells, it's the drama and negativity that sells.
For sure. And if I were to turn this to you, so who has been your mentor, and like what resources have you used to support the journey to get 25 million readers? Is that what you're at? Is it mainly through Google that you're actually building this whole thing?
Twitter was my go-to social media platform because you could grow organically quite quickly on Twitter. And today, even Twitter still has maintained a fairly strong organic reach. Facebook's organic reach for most people is just 0 to nothing. And Instagram is more organic. So I think a lot of people have moved over to Instagram as a marketing tool because there is an organic reach on that. I think we're seeing the rise of more superficial content. That is what works. So if you want to be successful, you've got to be a drama queen, you've got to be beautiful, you've got to be create something sensational, you've got to create something that's negative. I think quality content can break through, and I look at things like platforms that have done very, very well creating great quality content that have risen. Hustle, and they've got the sub-brand IO. Hustle, for example, has just been acquired by HubSpot. So what they did say is that platforms and B2B platforms will need to actually have media hubs within their platforms. So it's interesting looking at even B2B platforms acquiring media platforms, but media platforms that are providing quality content with gravitas.
That's strange. So what do you think of the whole idea of acquisitions? Because this is just merging different industries together. And again, the US has a problem with this because it's antitrust. Like, you can't have HubSpot, owning so many different things. What do you think of that?
I think they only target the big players. Microsoft is being threatened with being broken up. Facebook's being threatened with being broken up. So, look, I only think it happens at the top end of town, that sort of antitrust issue. But I think you can scale a couple of ways. You can actually buy scale by acquisition, or you can actually just organically grow it through other growth mechanisms.
But if HubSpot itself is unable to organically grow a network for itself, like which other B2B company do you think is going to be able to do it without having to buy it?
Oh, there's lots of them. So I think you've got to move from being a generalist to being very niche.
And could you give us an example of one company that's been able to make a good kind of what do you call that platform? A communication platform like the one that HubSpot bought by itself?
It's very hard to comment on that. I'm trying to think of other examples. Okay, so one example is in podcasting. Spotify just bought Joe Rogan about a year ago for $100 million to get access to his audience, which is billions of viewers on YouTube, as well as downloads on Apple. I think Joe Rogan's done a great job. He's an overnight success after about 12 or 13 years. So he's been both YouTube as well as iTunes and Spotify. So Spotify said, how do we reach a podcast audience? We buy an influencer. We buy the rights to his audience. So that's one example how I see that even the bigger players are buying niche players. So Spotify is buying into the audio niche by buying rights to Joe's platform for a few years. I think it's certainly not unlimited.
So what do you think are the opportunities for digital marketing managers that you see in the next decade? Like, where should we be going as digital marketers?
As digital marketers, I think you've got to be across emerging trends. I think the role of AI, the role of software as a service platforms that allow you to automate. I think automation and AI are going to be huge. Two big A's: automation, AI. The challenge I certainly had as just a blogger initially was, how do I scale me? So creating content was a challenge. Automating onboarding was a challenge. So what I had to decide was, okay, what platforms allow me to automate? And I think on top of that now is, how can I use artificial intelligence in the next 10 years to scale the company? So I think that the two big A's, automation and AI, are going to be important for digital marketers.
And could you tell us one particular way in which you're using artificial intelligence? Because I guess a lot of people want to hear about that.
Okay, so I think we're at the start of the AI revolution at the moment. The bigger players are using it. I have spoken to some of my peers that they're using AI to create content, but it's very imperfect. So I think AI is not at a stage of scaling, and scaling happens through automation. And also, trying to remember the author that spoke about a book, but the reason the internet became friendly was because of a user-friendly interface. It was called a web browser. Before that, the internet was just this raw, just information based globally, but it didn't have a user-friendly interface. And I think until you give something a user-friendly interface to do it, then it's going to be difficult. At the moment, AI doesn't have a user-friendly interface just to create usable AI functions.
And by when do you think this is going to happen? Like, how soon do we expect it to happen that a lot of companies are creating stuff through AI? And then how does Google or Twitter go about filtering this out? Because I suppose at some point they'll be like, we want more humans on our platform and less AI content.
It's a hard one to pick because virtual reality has been predicted to be a breakthrough for about a decade. So, Facebook bought Oculus Rift. So the reality is that it could take up to a decade, but it might be 4 or 5 years. But I'm thinking that we're at the start of a AI revolution that will scale us as humans, and that's great. But I think some of the premium content is going to be even the ability for people and filters to work out created by a human. So what's real and what's not. So maybe that's the filter.
Okay. So tell us, like, during the COVID times, how did your business do? Did you have a huge skyrocketing of revenues and everything? And how do you plan to work on growth after COVID? Is there something new you want to employ, or is there going to be a change in strategy?
We're going to be launching a product which will give people more power to make money online. That's what we're going to be working on, and enjoy what they're doing. Without, I think one of the realities that people have discovered globally is that as having a career and working for an organisation, for most cases, especially traditional industries, is that you may love working for the company, but the company doesn't necessarily love you back. And so how do you take control of your own life and get a life of freedom that isn't constrained by the industrial corporate environment that a lot of us are brought up in? Get a good career, get it till you're 65, retire and die. I think the other part of it is like, okay, we have never had so many tools and ability to both be creators and share our creations with the world, whether it's an entrepreneur, whether it's an artist, whether it's a writer, whether it's just a photographer. We've never had so many low-cost tools to scale both creation and its distribution to get attention and to then monetize that. I think we are in a fantastic place and time where we can take as much control as we take control of our life, because life shows up as we're planning it. But I think we're at such an exciting time where imagination, anything is possible. And I do love Arthur C. Clarke's quote, which said, there is no difference between advanced technology and magic.
That is so true. I was going to say, so tell us about some of the tools that you use in your daily life, like social media tools or any kind of marketing tools, but also daily tools that have got nothing to do with marketing. Tell us some tools that have made your life easier.
Tools that we use in the organization, one that's made a huge difference is Trello, which is essentially a collaboration tool, which allows us to focus on projects rather than get lost in the email torrent. So I think collaboration tools. The other tools that have been incredible for me over the last 12 months, we started a podcast, the Jeff Bullas Show, and what we did was we recorded that on Zoom, which allows us to both record audio as well as video, and then we can carve that up and create a YouTube channel as well as have an audio as well as create. So we create three types of media out of that. Number one is audio. Number two is video. Number three is text. So Zoom's been just such an easy to use platform that allows high quality audio, video to be created and then share it. So those two tools have just been really game changing.
And so you guys are really turning towards podcasts now. Is this something you want to get into like a lot?
Podcasting we've been doing for nearly 18 months now. Playing the long game on that. It's not as crowded as blogging, but it's a more complicated game. So you do require a lot of people do it on their own, which is good on them. But I have a team, including editors for the video, editors for the audio. We have people that actually cut up the long form video into snippets, just like you guys do, I'm sure. So podcasting isn't for the faint-hearted. I think it does require a lot of moving parts, but I've got a team that and a great process that allows us to do this very painlessly and very process-driven. So, podcasting is not our main game. It's just part of the multimedia approach that we take.
And for podcasting itself, what do you think the future of the industry is? Because I suppose nowadays we have a lot of podcasts choking up. So at some point, do you think there's going to be a saturation, or do you think the industry is just taking off right now?
It's been taking off the last 2 or 3 years, and it is starting to get saturated, just like any media does or any type of focus. Blogging was peaking in 2009, and I leapt onto that bandwagon then. So I think the challenge for all of us is choosing a medium which you're comfortable with, and that's a real challenge. Because a lot of people say, well, you got to do this, 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 and this, and going, well, I can't do everything unless you're a multimedia company. But I think there's some opportunities in different niches around the world. And I think the other thing that I've noticing too, especially with media companies, is the gating of premium content. So we're seeing membership, paid membership rising. Used to have a freemium model where you just gave everything away for free, whereas now I think we're seeing the rise of free content, but premium content's being gated that allows the creators to make money and thrive.
So last question then for you. What would you be doing now if not what you're doing? That was very complicated. What would you be doing if not this? As in your life? Yeah.
I think I'd be writing, cycling, and traveling. I'd still be creating. But jeffbullas.com, which is my digital persona, is like a virtual extension of me. So jeffbullas.com is my virtual digital left arm, right arm, left brain, right brain. So for me, it's creating and sharing with the world, and then having some fun just exploring the world. I think that's what I've been doing.
And just one bonus question, because I see the books behind you. So what books are you reading right now? Like what kind of books do you read in your leisure time?
I read things from I suppose books that look at personal development. I'm reading a book about Taoism and Tao through Wayne Dwyer. The One Thing by Gary Keller, and also startup books. So I read a lot of blogs. So I read science fiction. That's one of my escape areas. What I love about science fiction is you have these dreamers taking the technology of today and imagining it into the future. And they're the Arthur C. Clarkes of the past. And they talk about things like, they look at artificial intelligence, they look at nuclear technologies, they look at traveling to Mars. So I do love imagining what the future is and seeing what other people's imagination is and going, okay, so how can we apply that to business? How can we apply that to life? I'm much more about looking to the future than looking back into the past, even though we need to learn lessons of the past, such as the book by I think it's Sapien.
Sapiens, yeah. Yuval Harari. I always mispronounce
I always have trouble pronouncing his name. So not books like that look into, and the other ones is Flourish by Robert Seligman is also one of my favorites.
What is your prediction for the future? Well, the social media, the marketing future, which you already told me about AI, but that's like the short term. Tell me the long term prediction about where we are headed.
What, with social media?
With all of it, like with what you have thought about, I bet you must have like made a dystopian or a utopian future. But yeah, social media related, well, internet related, let's say that.
I'm generally an optimist, and I remember speaking at the World Youth Forum in Egypt, hosted by the President of Egypt, and we had a roundtable discussion about the negative of social media and the positive of social media. And up to that point, I was the eternal optimist about social media. I think the future of social media is that there needs to be more regulation of it, because I think we've created allowed bad actors to take over the platforms in the name of the platforms being able to make money. And as we all know, that life is not all about making money. Some of the richest people in the world are some of the saddest people in the world. I think that we live in a very complicated world, but I think freedom comes from simplicity. The platforms have become more complex. And I was fascinated to read the other day that Elon Musk is in the process and has sold 6 of his multi-million-dollar homes and lives in a 250 square foot prefab home in Texas. And someone asked him, why is he doing that? And he said, freedom. Because I think at the end of the day, if we make life too complex and all about acquiring and buying stuff, is that you don't own the stuff owns you. So I think as humans, we're battling with a world of complexity. And I think our challenge as humans is to keep it real and get back to simplicity and get back to what we really are as humans, rather than lose our souls to corporate greed and to how much do you need. So I think as humans, we're battling with complexity, and I think the challenge for all of us is trying to move into simplicity. I think it's a battle all of us are having.
Yeah, that was a very profound and concise answer. Well, that's the end of the interview. Thanks everyone for joining us for this month's episode of Outgrow's Market of the Month. That was Jeff Bullas, who is the CEO at jeffbullas.com. Thanks for joining us, Jeff.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Check out their website for more details, and we'll see you again next month.